Look, I want to talk about Candace Owens today real quick. The problem is you're looking at Candace Owens through the view and perspective of a bipartisan political ideology. And that's what our country wants us to do, is to pick a side and attack the other side no matter what. But if you were to look at Candace Owens objectively as a human being, you can rationalize her behavior and not judge her as critically. What we're looking at when we see her is, oh, she's evil because she's going after a widow. She's evil because she's going after TPUSA. Because our position is on one side or the other, and there's room for nuance. For example, I have voted Republican 3 times now, okay? And I've always been a registered Republican. But there's people like Bernie Sanders, which I don't necessarily agree with him, but there's a lot of things that I like about Bernie Sanders. And if I watch the news media all day, and if I only watch one side of the aisle one day or all day, I'm trained to hate these people, to hate AOC and Hillary and Nancy Pelosi and everybody on the other side. I'm supposed to hate these people. So when I do, I get the affirmation that I am correct in my behavior, and it's essentially an echo chamber. But not to go on and on about that, but there's a couple things about Candace that I really admire. I really think that she's on the right track. If I was to die in a mysterious way or a controversial way, I hope somebody in my life would have the care, the passion, and the emotions, and just the desire to figure out what really happened. I hope somebody has that energy. In a regular conversation with friends, you're like, hey, if I died, would you investigate it? Like, if you just talk to one of your buddies or one of your friends, you would hope they would say, I would go to the ends of the earth to find out what happened to you. I would call the FBI. I would investigate everybody that's ever talked to you. You would hope somebody would treat you like that, with the dignity, just like that. So from that point of view, I can see why she is like that and why she is behaving in that manner, because we only see the relationship she had with Charlie in retrospect, and only on the surface level. Who knows how really close they were? Maybe there was a level of attraction at one point, and a lot of people speculate that Candace wishes that she was married to Charlie instead of Erica. I mean, I guess you can read into that because she's a female and he's a male, and they were really close at one point and had great chemistry. But just put that aside and say they were good friends. They texted all the time. They talked all the time. I still have friends to this day that I might not be close with them today because we've grown up and we have separate lives and families, businesses, careers. People have moved. So it is challenging, but I still care for these people deep, deep, deep down in my heart. There's people I haven't talked to in 10 years, and if something happened to them, I would be crushed. I would be crushed. So just think about it from a human perspective and not a political perspective. I would hope somebody would care enough about me to really find out what happened to me. So I respect that. And that's not a political opinion. Regardless of who Candace votes for or who she promotes, who cares? Just put that aside. And one of the reasons why she's going after people that nobody wants to go after is because if you investigate even a little bit about our country, America, there's all these major events, deaths and terrorist events that we were lied to about. So put yourself in her shoes, where she's an influential person. Her beliefs have changed over time. She's in the public more than any of us. And when our government lies or covers up or misleads us down the wrong path when anything big ever happens, why would the first thing you think of is to trust the government or trust the narrative, when the mainstream narrative for almost all these events have eventually came out as being wrong or being misleading or untrue. So when she sees her really good friend, best friend Charlie, maybe not best friends at the time, but somebody that has impacted her life, somebody that she had a deep connection with at one point, that she truly cared about, when she sees that happen, he's a public figure in the manner that he died, everybody in the country was moved emotionally. Imagine if that was your really good friend, even if you haven't talked to them in a couple years or you weren't very close, you would freak out. Like, your instincts is like, oh my God, like, my friend just got murdered, and then they came out with a story that doesn't make sense with all these questions, knowing the history of our country that has always kind of been really fishy about these situations. And then you stack on top of that, not only is our government giving us the narrative, but you look back at pattern recognition throughout history and you're like, oh wow, there's a lot of events that really didn't add up, and eventually the conspiracy theories that came out at the time, a lot of the times they came out to be true or close to the truth. And that's her philosophy. I think her messaging sometimes is a little bit more direct and pointed in a certain direction or at a certain person, and I think she could be more broad and clarify that she's speculating and that it is a thought process she's going down versus accusational language. I agree with that part. And again, I like Candace. I'm not the biggest Candace fan. I literally watch commentators on all sides of the spectrum. Even though I am a Republican, I like to watch people on every side, because throughout my life, what I've learned is what I know and what I say is based off of what I've heard and who I've been around. And a lot of times, especially as a young man, you have your convictions and beliefs, and at some point you sit there and you say, why do I believe what I believe? Why do I enjoy what I enjoy? So I'm the type of person, when I question myself, I'm like, well, let's explore more. So like, I like to listen to every side of the argument, because they could be right. Just because they vote a certain way doesn't mean they're 100% wrong every time they talk. So I think we should keep a little bit more of an open mind. And I'm also not saying you shouldn't criticize Candace. I think you should criticize her, but just realize why you're criticizing her and where is it coming from. Is it coming from a genuine human emotion that you're criticizing her, or is it coming from a mainstream narrative that says, oh, Candace is evil, Candace is bad, she's wrong? She admits she could be wrong. But when you're a public figure that you get tons and tons of people reaching out to you with tips and information, you've predicted stories and covered stories in the past, you've been wrong, you've been right, but you've seen how our government has explained things, and you're like, I don't trust none of this crap. And then your emotions are, from 0 to 1,000,000. Like, one of your closest good friends that you've spent a chunk of your life with was just wiped off the earth in such a public and dramatic fashion. I think people forget how much of an emotional whirlwind that could be for her, and she has to put on a public persona. But imagine the grief and the emotions behind the scenes, which is why people are kind of against Erica Kirk, because you're like, you're married to the guy and you're not reacting in this way. And Candace she's that friend that will lose her absolute mind to get to the bottom of it. And I respect that more than anything. Every time I've watched an episode of Candace since Charlie has passed, it's like you can just clearly see how upset she is, how bothered she is by this. And that's what you don't see anywhere else. You see, like, I mean, not anywhere else, but like the people that she's investigating, the groups and people that she's investigating, you don't see that visceral emotion. You don't see that raw nature, like human nature of like, we're gonna, you know, scratch and claw to the ends of the earth to figure this thing out. It's kind of lazy. It's kind of like when you accept the narrative and you don't want to question it. I think that's why she's going after these people, is because it's like, oh yeah, we trust the FBI and the Department of Justice, and that's it. They're always right. They've always been honest. So why wouldn't I trust them? Think about that. Literally think about that. It's like, once you think in this way, it doesn't make you a Candace fan or you love her or you think she's genius. It's just a little bit more of a human perspective and not a bipartisan political perspective. It's like, I actually understand from a human level that she is desperate to find out what happened. And a motivating factor of really discovering what truly happened is restoring trust in the government, in our country, in the institutions that we're supposed to trust, that our tax dollars go to. If she is able to really piece this together and find concrete evidence that opposes the national story about this, the FBI's narrative of how this event played out, and she's actually right, or her investigation information leads to another outcome, but they use her to find out, like, not, you know, everybody says she just wants to make money. I think she was doing pretty good for herself before this. And I don't know, my perspective is, I guess I'm defending her, but it's not necessarily like you must love Candace. It's just a different perspective. And I think that if she was able to really help solve this, that would push our institutions to, like, in the future, just be honest and truthful, especially with the internet. There's not a lot of stuff you can hide. And people, the general public is a lot smarter when they come together, and not when, you know, it's just the FBI doing their thing that they've been doing for 100 years. It's like, there's other ways to investigate. There's other, like, Candace has an intimate experience with TPUSA, with some of those people, with Charlie, the dynamics. So she has a point of view that the people in the FBI or DOJ don't have. And anyway, that's my opinion. Hopefully that makes sense. And go Candace, go Max. And again, erase the political bias here. I would say this if it was anybody else defending a murder case or investigating a murder case. It doesn't matter. I don't care if they vote for whoever they vote for. And that's actually, average Americans are the same way. Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and all these people, they want you to be like radical. Like, oh, you're a progressive and you cannot. You're a liberal. You cannot listen to the other side. They're evil. They want to kill you. They hate you. It's like, man, average people don't, like, you bump into anybody in the street, nobody talks like that. People can have disagreements and we can shake hands and say, I'm so glad you shared that with me. We'll just agree to disagree, but I respect your opinion. That's literally most average conversations. It does get heated from time to time, mostly in families. That's why they say don't bring up politics, you know, at the dinner table. But that's because there's a narrative that it's a feedback loop of, like, you watch the news, they trigger you, they share the worst things about the other side, then it registers in your brain, you talk about it with a biased perspective, then you get a reaction, and then it reaffirms the idea that the news gave you, and it's just like a negative feedback loop that just keeps going and going. We have to break that loop and realize we're all human beings, and we do have biases, we do have opinions, we do have perspectives, but at the end of the day, we all put on clothes, we all go to the bathroom, we all eat. One day we're all gonna die. And it's not really that serious. So, hope you enjoyed it.